You walk into a department store, and the first thing you see is a sleek leather jacket marked at $500. Your brain immediately recoils. Too expensive. You keep walking, scanning the racks, looking for something that won't break the bank. Then you see it. A jacket that looks almost identical, hanging right there for $100. In that split second, your brain does a mental cartwheel. It doesn't see a $100 purchase anymore. It sees a $400 win. You haven't even looked at the stitching, the fabric quality, or whether you actually need a new coat. You just snatched it up because that first $500 tag acted like a magnet for your logic. This is the anchor trap, and it is the single most effective way companies manipulate your perception of value without you ever realizing you've been played. Most of us think we are rational agents. We think we walk through life doing a cost-benefit analysis on every single purchase, comparing the price to the utility. We tell ourselves we're thrifty. We tell ourselves we only buy what we need. But the truth is, your brain is a lazy organ. It hates doing complex math. It hates calculating the true value of a product. So instead of evaluating a price on its own merits, it looks for a shortcut. It grabs the first piece of numerical information it sees, the anchor, and uses that as a reference point for everything that follows. It doesn't matter if that first number is arbitrary. It doesn't matter if it's totally detached from reality. Once that anchor is set, your brain locks in. Consider a typical trip to your local Starbucks or any high-end coffee chain. You walk up to the menu and you see the sizes. A small, or tall, is $3.50. A medium, or grande, is $4. A large, or venti, is $4.50. If you walked in and the menu only showed the venti for $4.50, you might hesitate. You'd think about whether a cup of coffee is really worth nearly $5. But because that small exists at $3.50, the large suddenly feels like a reasonable upgrade. You aren't buying the size you need, you're buying the distance from the anchor. You're paying an extra dollar just to avoid the perceived loss of the small. The company doesn't care which one you pick, as long as they control the relative distance between them. The real danger is how this happens in high-stakes environments where you think you're being smart about your money. Take real estate or car shopping. You go to a dealership and the salesperson shows you a luxury SUV with a bloated MSRP of $60,000. You say, "No way." Then they pivot to a mid-tier model for $45,000. Your heart rate slows down. 45 doesn't feel like a massive hit anymore because your brain is still stuck in the orbit of that initial $60,000 figure. You walk out of the lot thinking you saved $15,000, but you haven't saved a dime. You just anchored yourself to a price that was designed to be rejected so that a slightly lower but still expensive number would look like a bargain. This is why companies are obsessed with the VIP package. You see it on every SaaS landing page and every service menu. They put a 3-item tier list in front of you. The top tier is some massive, absurd enterprise plan for $5,000. Nobody buys it. Maybe 1% of customers do, but that isn't why it's there. It's there so the middle tier, the standard plan for $2,000, looks like the obvious, balanced choice. The middle option is their profit machine. They don't need to sell you why $2,000 is a fair price for the service. They just need you to look at the $5,000 anchor and decide that you're not the type of person who buys the cheap basic plan, but you're also not crazy enough to buy the enterprise one. You settle for the middle because it feels like the smartest compromise. But what if you're the one being sold to? You need to realize that every time you see a regular price crossed out, you're looking at a deliberate attempt to hijack your cognitive process. When you see a tag that says was 150, now 75, the 150 is a ghost. It's a phantom number meant to make you feel like you're gaining value. But if you never would have paid $150 in the first place, you haven't saved $75. You've spent $75 on something that might only be worth $40. By ignoring the anchor, you reclaim your agency. You have to ask yourself a simple, brutal question. If the anchor price didn't exist, would I pay the current price? If the answer is no, put it back. The trap is even more insidious when you're the one setting the prices. If you're a freelancer or a business owner, you might be tempted to lead with your lowest, most reasonable price because you're afraid of scaring people away. That is a massive mistake. If you lead with your lowest price, that becomes the anchor. When you later try to pitch an add-on or a premium service, it will look wildly expensive by comparison. You have to reverse the flow. You show the high-value, high-cost option first. You let that establish the ceiling of what is possible. Then, when you present your target offer, it falls safely within the comfort zone created by that first, higher number. It's not about tricking people, it's about context. If you don't provide the context, the market will, and it will almost always use an anchor that works against your bottom line. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to the anchors set by others. They go to a store, see a high price, and feel lucky when they find something lower. They open a credit card statement, see a minimum payment, and feel relieved that it's not the full balance. They are living inside a mental framework built by marketing departments whose only goal is to make the decision-making process feel like a win for you. But it's not a win, it's just math you didn't choose to do. So how do you break out of this? You have to learn to de-anchor. This week, I want you to try a simple, uncomfortable exercise. Every time you are at a checkout counter or looking at an online cart, stop and physically look away from the original price or the suggested price. Force your eyes to look only at the final dollar amount you are about to pay. Ask yourself, if I found this product on the ground right now, how much would I pay for it, ignoring everything I've seen on the tag? You'll be shocked at how often the answer is nothing or maybe $5. That is your real valuation. Everything else is just psychological noise. Start noticing the decoy option in the menus you look at. When you see a list of 3 options, look for the one that clearly exists just to make another one look better. Ask yourself, why is this third option here? Once you start spotting these, the anchor trap loses its power. You aren't being cheap by questioning the structure, you're being deliberate. You're finally reading the room before you open your wallet. The next time you're about to click buy because you feel like you're getting a deal, pause and ask, what is the specific number that is making me feel like this is cheap? Is it the product's actual utility, or is it just the distance from a much higher number you saw 3 minutes ago? Once you identify the anchor, the trap vanishes. How many times have you looked at a price and felt relieved that it was lower than what you saw 5 seconds prior? And how much of your monthly budget is currently tied up in those specific relief-based purchases?